So as Nate mentioned, today is a feature presentation on Schedule Excel. I'm not going to talk a lot about some workflows. We've got a lot of videos that will be, or webcasts that we might be posting in the future here, and some that may have already been talked about. Talk about Schedule Excel workflows, but I'm going to show you today just kind of a quick feature overview of what Schedule Excel is. And for those of you who have seen some of our tools before, Schedule Excel is effectively a replacement for our older tool, Spreadsheet Drafter. If you download our tool set today, you'll see them both side by side on the ribbon. Probably just want to turn off Spreadsheet Drafter, or if you have Spreadsheet Drafter in your current workflow, look at switching that over to Schedule Excel, because Schedule Excel is a much more powerful workflow than Spreadsheet Drafter ever was. So we leave it there just because you may have a workflow already in place that's currently leveraging Spreadsheet Drafter. We don't want to destroy that, but we do want you to take some time and transition that across. So let's take a look at what Schedule Excel can do. So I'm going to go to the next slide here. We're going to take a look. Schedule Excel basically creates a link to a Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. Now, technically, it can be any spreadsheet. It doesn't have to necessarily be authored from Excel, but the format that we do bring in is an XLS or an XLSX. Technically, an XLSM as well if you happen to have a macro-enabled worksheet. So any of those three can be linked in. Those are the only three formats that we support at this time. You can bring in any number of worksheets, which is good because you can have a number of worksheets all together in one workbook, and I'll actually show that example a little bit later on here. Nice feature about this is a live link that has the ability to have an automatic update. So when users open up the project, the information linked from Excel can update in exactly the same way that DWGs would update if they were referenced in, or Revit models would update if they were referenced in. These spreadsheets can also update in the same way. So they can automatically update, provided they have the spreadsheet or the Schedule Excel installed. It allows you to maintain formatting, things like merged cells, boundaries on cells, the infills, background cell infills, any kind of font formatting you've got, including word wrapping. So that is all a possibility. I apologize. Thank you for that, Nate. There we go. So, recap real quick. Create a link to Excel. Any number of sheets, live link with automatic updating. That's an option. You can actually turn that off if you want to. Again, the maintaining of formatting for most of the properties of cells inside Excel. We'll take a look at a little bit of that today as well. So if I go to the next slide here, you can also maintain the data, and I misspelled while. You can maintain the data while in Revit. So we do actually offer you a spreadsheet interface to aid in your updating of data. You can go in there, modify information right there, save the spreadsheet back out. So you don't necessarily have to open up Excel to make updates to some of this information. And I'll show you a couple of workflows where that might be meaningful for you. What it actually does is it creates for you a Revit schedule. And the nice thing about that is you can actually take that Revit schedule and put it on as many sheets as you want. So a lot of people have been beginning to use this for things like key notes or general sheet notes, or a number of bits of information that appear on multiple sheets. And I'll show you a couple of examples of how that might work for you as well. So it does use a Revit schedule, even though the information that we're showing up inside that schedule isn't necessarily coming from Revit data. It's scheduling any explicit object, but we're going to show you a little bit today about how that works. There's also some really nice workflows that can work here. You can partner this very closely with something like Spreadsheet Link, where you can take your data from Revit, maybe it's room occupancy schedules, and you can export that out, and you can use some advanced settings to kind of ease with those exports to make sure it's pulling the correct template file that already has some pre-formatted tabs on it, perhaps. You format that data any way you want, and then you can link that back into Revit using the Schedule Excel. I'll show you a quick example of that today, one that I went into a lot more detail with in an earlier webinar you can take a look at, but I'll show you that workflow here in case you happen to have missed that one. So here's some popular uses for this, just so you kind of get a couple of ideas of where this might fit, and I'll show you a couple of them today. Abbreviations lists might be a good use of this. Keynoting, if you're doing a non-Revit keynoting and you're managing lists of keynotes, this might be a way of managing this instead of putting it into a schedule or a note block. This is another technique that might be used. You could do this for general notes or sheet notes. could work for that. Electrical panel board schedules. It's a very highly customized interface. And though Revit does have panel board schedules itself, sometimes the electrical engineers don't like how their information is being calculated. So you could still take your information, export it from Revit, format it into electrical panel board how you want, and then re-import that right back in. And finally, here we've got some automatic plumbing fixture calculations. This is one of the examples where I'll use the partnering with Spreadsheet link. And I'm not going to show the behind the scenes for this. I'm just going to show you kind of how it works. But you could do some calculations for water closets, drinking fountains, lavatories, pretty much anything you want that's all based on occupancy that's also calculated via one of our tools. So with that, I've kind of gone through a quick description of what it does. Let me actually take you live into Revit and show you exactly how it works. So happen to be in Revit, my basic project that I use for a lot of our presentations here. And on the Revit Express Tools tab, on the BIM project suite right here, I'm going to pull this over to the left-hand side so it stays opened up on screen the entire time we're talking about it here. The BIM project suite right here is Schedule Excel. It's right next to the spreadsheet link. If you haven't downloaded recently, definitely you're going to want to go get a copy of the latest BIM project suite so you can get your hands on the Schedule Excel. Really powerful tool. So let's go through and take a look at the core interface of Schedule Excel. When I open this up, at first in a project when there's nothing linked in just yet, I'm going to have the ability to add a link. I also have the ability over here to modify some of my options. This can tell me how it's going to handle certain components inside of Excel. Generally what I like to do is leverage whatever the properties of Excel are as much as I possibly can. So I'm going to leave the defaults set for right now, and I'm going to click OK. Maybe we'll come back and talk about those a little later depending on what questions you happen to pop up. So what I'm going to do is add a link. Now when I'm adding this link right here, what it's going to let me do is browse for any spreadsheet I want. So I'm going to use the first example here as an electrical panel board schedule. Just one example. I'm going to bring in maybe one or two of them and have them created over here in my schedules list. In fact, before I do this, let me cancel out of this entirely. I'm going to scroll down toward the bottom. Right here you'll see schedules and quantities. There's a list of my actual Revit schedules inside of here. Some of them I'll use for a future example here in just a moment, but for right now, these are just actual live Revit schedules at this point. So I'm going to add a new link. When I add this new link, what I'm going to do is open a spreadsheet. I'm going to browse to where some of my sample content happens to exist here. So I'm going to go to my D drive out here and go grab some of my Revit Express Tool workflow samples, and I've got a Schedule Excel folder here that has some panel board schedules floating inside of here. So if I open up the panel board schedules, this is a spreadsheet that has a lot of panel board schedules. This one came from a client of ours. They do most of their panels still inside of Excel. That's just fine. They're highly formatted. They've got different areas inside of there with different cell boundaries, different merged configurations, and different cell infill kind of graphics out there. Bold cell layouts, different font sizes in some cases, but this information is all laid out. And what I want to do is take this panel board. Now I could take the active worksheet only if I wanted to and bring that in, or I could grab multiple worksheets and actually check a few of these if I wanted to bring in more than one. In this case, for this example, I'm going to go ahead and bring in just the active worksheet, the one that I'm seeing here on screen right now. What it will do, what Schedule Excel is going to do, it's going to use the name of the tab right here as part of the name of the view. And so I'm going to go ahead and click OK. This is going to generate for me a view inside of Revit. It's actually going to make it, since I'm only importing one worksheet here, it's going to actually make it my active view. So pulling my Schedule Excel window off to the side, you can see it's got my black cell infills inside of here. It has no cell borders up on top, so the text is still formatted in the same fashion. Down below that, I've got the different merges of cells, possibly. In this case, you can see some cell merging going on with different areas of cell infill. Again, this is a schedule in Revit. So this is my SXL. It's a little prefix you put on schedules managed by Schedule Excel. And then it actually has the name of the tab from the spreadsheet that it was working with. Now, if I pull the Schedule Excel window back on the screen here, you'll notice that I have the name of the tab, the path to the file, the worksheet explicitly that I'm bringing in, which usually matches the name over here unless the user overrides it for some reason, when it was last updated, There's a little checkbox here that is checked by default, telling it to automatically update. So when I open up my project, it rescans any links that I've got here and updates them. Now, if you've got a lot of links, you may want to consider the possibility of disabling some of them if they're not updating on a regular basis. There is a status over here that will tell you whether or not it is up to date. So you can always come back through and either choose to update all, or you can choose an explicit row and update just that one. Now, I was mentioning that we have an editing window. So if I wanted to come in here and make some changes to this spreadsheet, I don't necessarily have to do it in Excel directly. I don't have to open up Excel. I can click on this row, I can choose Edit, and what it will do is open up that original spreadsheet with all of the tabs. I can resize the window a little bit here, and I can come back and add in something if I want to. So I can maybe take these two bits of information here and copy it. Maybe I go down to row 21 and I paste that information in. So right now row 21 doesn't have anything. My spreadsheet is about to have the word spare. I'm going to go ahead and save that, and I'm going to close this down, or I'll just click OK. What it'll do automatically as I click OK or close that down is it will already have gone through and updated my spreadsheet or my linked view inside of Revit. So I edit in a spreadsheet environment, Revit keeps it up to date, or Schedule Excel rather keeps it up to date within Revit. So let's take a look at another example here. I'm going to take 3 tabs all at the same time and bring all of them in. Now, some of them have information properly filled out and spaced, some of them do not, and I'm going to probably want to go in there and make a couple of quick edits to them. So I'm going to go ahead and add a couple more links. I'm going to open up from my sample folder here some architectural notes that are going to go in my project. Now, this is going to be architectural abbreviations list. This might be just general notes that go on the cover sheet. It might be sheet-specific notes. But I'm going to go ahead and bring all of them in. I'm going to click Open. It's going to show me all 3 tabs inside of here. Let me pull this a little bit wider, and I'll scroll over all the way. So I've got an abbreviations legend inside of here with some headers and some kind of formatted stuff going on, a couple of merged cells up here, just some basic abbreviations list. I've got some general architectural notes that I use on some of my projects. I perhaps want to use these on this project as well. I might want to put a boundary on this or change the formatting, and I'll do that in a moment here. But for now, I have my general notes, and then I have some sheet-specific notes that are kind of pre-configured, and I can fill this out and have this update on my sheet. And again, I might want to come back and change some graphics on this and perhaps fill out some text information. But maybe that's happening outside of Revit. So let me just take all of these worksheets and bring all of them in at the same time, all 3 of them. I'm going to go ahead and click OK here and bring in all 3 worksheets. This is going to generate down here on the lower left. You'll see the SXL show up in front of each one of those, and I have my abbreviation legend, which is, again, the tab name, the general architectural notes, and the general sheet notes. All 3 of those tabs were brought in. They're all told to automatically update, and at this point, I'm going to close down Schedule Excel and take a look at one of them. I'm going to take a look at my general sheet notes right here. Now, my general sheet notes has a little bit of extra information in it because I happen to have filled out some extra data. I'm going to delete those rows in a moment here and kind of clean this up. I'm also going to put a border around some of these objects inside of here, creating a little line between general sheet notes and my actual notes. I don't necessarily want lines separating out the individual notes themselves. I just want to space them out. I have one row of data between them, but I want a big, heavy border around this so that when I go to, say, one of my floor plan sheets, like my main floor plan, if I was going to take my general sheet notes and place this out here, I want this to look good and have its own little border around it, which right now it does not have. It doesn't have a border right now. So I'm going to go through Excel, and I'm going to reformat this just a little bit so that this information inside of Revit updates the way that I want it to. I'm going to go ahead and save this for right now. Synchronize the central, kind of shut this down. And I'm going to come back in just a moment. I'm actually closing Revit as a whole. I'm going to go edit my Excel. We're going to take a look at how this will update when I open this back up. So while that's closing, let me pull on the screen here that spreadsheet, the architectural notes, and I'm going to do a little bit of formatting to this while that's shutting down. So here is my Excel file here. Let me just make sure this is closing. There we go. You can see my presentation there in the background. We'll get back to that in just a moment here. But on this tab, I'm going to take all these extra rows of data down here, and I'm just going to go ahead and delete them. I'm going to right-click here and delete the actual rows. It's going to get rid of all the data inside of there, which hopefully will make my Excel a little bit happier in my link. I'm going to come all the way to the top here and put some basic formatting on this. Let's go here and format the cells. Just do a basic border like a heavy outline, perhaps. And let's see, I'm going to go to right here. And I'm going to format these cells and put a heavy border on the bottom. We'll actually do a medium weight border on the bottom of those. All right, there we go. So that's my basic formatting here. And I need another note here for C. Let's see, I'm going to go and do something like refer to general sheets for security and fire rated information. I'm copying this off of another form that I had set up over here. And I will use this in my formatting. Copy this as well. And come on now, paste that in there. There we go. There's supposed to be a comma right there. And I'm going to modify this, making it Arial specifically, and will be 11, and we're going to turn on wrapping of text. All right, oh, my cell end over there got a little messed up. So I'm going to go ahead and format cells again and make that a heavy boundary over there. All right, so I'm going to save this, and I'm going to close this down. And you know what? I'm going to do one more thing inside of here. I'm going to take and put a couple of spaces. I noticed that on my architecture or general notes over here that I didn't have spaces between my cells, and I kind of want to. So what I'm going to do is copy a cell from down here, and I'm going to cheat to just right-click here and insert copied cells. I think I can do that a couple of times. I guess I can't. We'll copy this one here. Right-click, insert copied cells. And we're just going to create a couple of spaces inside of here just so that it is good to go. Insert. And one more will do it. Insert. That's got an extra space at the top. Let's get rid of that. Or perhaps it doesn't have an extra space at the top. What are you doing? Something weird. All right, well, I'll come back and fix that later. Anyway, so I've got that. You know what? I'm going to put a border around this as well. I kind of want the same kind of formatting here. So I'm going to go ahead and for all these notes, I'm just going to put a border real quick. Format cells, border, heavy perimeter, and then we're going to put one heavy line right here. So we'll do, try this again. Format cells, make it look just like the other notes there, and put the underline. All right, so I've done a little bit of formatting here. If you want to do some cell backgrounds, you could as well. If I want to do something like, oh yeah, gray and fill, I can do whatever I want. Save this, close it down, shut that. I'll leave that open for now. And I'm going to open up Revit again. And with Revit open back up one more time, we are waiting for Revit to open here. We're going to go ahead and open up that project, and we're going to see how that updates. Since I had synchronized to Central, it should have all 4 of those spreadsheets linked in. And when I open this up, even though I was editing it external from Revit, it should update in my project. So let's go ahead and reopen this. Normally, I wouldn't recommend opening up the local copy, but since I just made that local copy, just a few seconds ago, and I just shut it down, I'm going to cheat right now and just go ahead and open that up. I did sync to Central. My changes are published back, so it should be fine. But I'm going to do that anyway. Now, on my other monitors here, this just popped up. Probably flickered on the screen for you. It showed that it had just gone through and updated my spreadsheet. It's actually a process that runs once the project is open. So if I go down here to my general sheet notes and take a look at it now, I've got a shorter general sheet notes, and I have the new note C right there. It already has my new cell boundaries filled in out here. And if I go to my general architectural note, once again, I've got this background cell infill. Got a couple of spacings put in here where I inserted some of those extra spaces, and I've got whatever the boundary happens to be. So it's already taken care of all of those boundaries. It's fantastic. It's doing all the work that I asked it to do. I didn't do any updates here to my abbreviations legend. I could have had I wanted to. I didn't do any updates to the other spreadsheet out there that was the panel board. But it makes it real easy to go through and actually create updates. I wouldn't want to do any updates here in Revit because it's not bidirectional. It goes from Excel into Revit, just like you wouldn't update the drawing directly here in Revit. You'd go back to the AutoCAD and update the background floor plan EWG there and have it linked in. So you're going to go to the source application, do your edits, have that brought in. All right. So that's the general workflow for using Schedule Excel. I want to show you one more workflow again. If you were in a previous presentation, I did an example where I'd gone through and I did some code plan work where I automatically calculated all of my room square or my room occupancies And then from that, I generated a schedule that told me how many plumbing fixtures I'm supposed to have based on some different calculation methods. Now, I'm not going to go into the background workings of that. If you want to see that presentation, you can take a look on our YouTube channel. We've got that saved up there. What I'm going to do is just run the settings for it. So I'm going to go ahead and open up Spreadsheet Link here. With Spreadsheet Link open, what I'm going to do is load some settings from a file. So I'm going to load these settings so that you'll be able to see that I have these settings kind of pre-saved, and I've got my room calculations right here. And I have some room calculations for my Spreadsheet Link Express. Now, this is an automated way. I wouldn't have to necessarily open up Spreadsheet Link. This could automatically do all of the exporting and applying of information. I'm going to do it manually here a little bit so I can show you these 3 tabs down here. This is at the process right now going through and re-extracting my room data. There's no room data right now. As soon as I tell it to overwrite that sheet, it overwrites that one sheet. But in the process of doing that down here, my plumbing fixture calculations have automatically taken care of themselves. This is a formatted tab, not coming from Revit directly. It's one that I formatted in Excel. So the rooms come from Revit using the Schedule Excel to export Spreadsheet Link to export that. I'm also using the Spreadsheet Link here to apply back my actual occupancy values, which I'm going to do right now. I'm going to apply these back to my project. And as I do that, there's 124 rooms that get updated. That's great. But I have the 3 different plumbing fixture calculations here. And if I save my spreadsheet out, I'm going to go ahead and save this to my spreadsheet. Let's see, I'm going to go to, I'll go to my Schedule Excel folder here, and I'll do room calculation. So I'll have a saved copy of this I can use in the future here. I'm not going to open that up in Excel. What I am going to do is, since I've already applied my numbers back, is I'm going to create a quick link using the Schedule Excel. So with Schedule Excel, add one more link here real quick, and I'll open up my room calculation. I'm going to take all 3 of these tabs and bring all 3, and I'll let the end user figure out which one they want to actually use. But I'm going to bring all 3 water closet calculations into my project. So it brought all 3 in. Now, if anybody goes back through and uses the Schedule Excel or uses the Spreadsheet Link or Spreadsheet Link Express to re-export that information, it'll re-update that spreadsheet, and it's then going to redo my calculations, and because they're linked in, it'll automatically have whatever my new plumbing fixture calcs are in my model. So if I close this down, scroll down a little ways here, here's my Schedule Excel, plumbing fixture method 1, method 2, and method 3, and if I open this up, I have the exact same formatting sitting right there. And of course, this could very easily be drawn onto a sheet or as many sheets as I wanted. Since these happen to be schedules, they can appear on many, many sheets. All right, well, that's a quick introduction there to the Schedule Excel tool, all of the features and that it can do there. You can see a couple of the workflows that this might work for you. Hopefully, you kind of see some benefits to fit into your company's processes to kind of replace the old process of linking a spreadsheet into AutoCAD as an OLE, and taking the AutoCAD drawing and linking that into Revit, which creates really slow plots, and it creates a slower workflow, less rapid updating. This is actually Revit native objects that we're generating here that's linked to Excel. So you can update the Excel very easily.